Hi there, everybody. If you're wanting to know how to help craft some awesome characters in your first book for 2023, then keep listening because we're going to show you how. Hi there, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Lisa Oliver and I am an paranormal romance author. If you want to find out about me, you can Google me, you can look for me on Amazon, wherever it is you like. I'm probably going to be found there. But today we're not talking about me, we're talking about characters. And for those of you who don't know, believe me, your characters are what is going to keep your reader turning the page. Having character-driven plots, having character-driven stories are the sorts of things your readers will keep coming back for. You want to write characters that are memorable, that your readers can relate to, that perhaps at times they can see a little bit of themselves in it, in the characters that you portray, and they'll happily follow along with the story because they'll get invested in the wonderful characters that you've created, that they will either love or hate, depending on the type of story that you've written. And that's what you need to create a successful story. So sorry, I kind of fluffed that a bit. It is in the new year. I'm sort of still getting myself together with the different things that I'm doing and trying to provide a bit more of useful content for you on this channel. I wasn't actually sure whether or not I was going to continue with this one, but I do think I am bringing some value. So I'm trying to do that today instead of just waffling about not much at all. So what do you need? The 5 tips for creating memorable characters. The first thing, of course, is that character has to have personality. And honestly, I've explained this before to my longtime viewers, but I use pictures as my inspiration. And I may have the copyright to these, I may not, I'm not sure. They could be stock photos or whatever else, but I use them purely for inspirational purposes. And as you can see, each one of these people, what's different about them is that they convey something about their personality in the photo that's been taken. You've got someone here who you just never know if he's going to flick you off or grin at you. And this person here I used as my inspiration for Anubis. This one here, friendly, happy-go-lucky guy, just drinking a coffee, but he's got himself a really nice watch on. He seems to like a bit of bling, but he's somebody you'd actually want to sit next to in a coffee shop, I'm sure. And then down here we have got another guy here. Now he's clearly a singer. It's rather obvious from the thing, but what struck me about this photo was his huge grin. This guy clearly loved what he was doing, and he became the inspiration for, I think his name was Jason in Collar and Scruff, who was a singer. He was a part-time singer and part-time landscaper. And I mean, this guy here, I have actually used his picture 2 or 3 times when I'm wanting an alpha type with a really cool personality. And this is what, the most important point of your character writing tip is the personality, is the person having a unique personality that speaks to their character, their morals, and everything else like that. And rather than write huge long sheets of character traits and things like that, I use pictures, and I find I can glean a lot, or more rather my imagination can glean a lot about a person just from looking at their pictures. And that leads us on to point 2, which is that your characters have to be multidimensional. In our particular, or in my particular genre at the moment, there's a real emphasis. Readers are really keen on like assassin stories and things like that. Particularly assassins who happen to have a heart of gold. But the thing is that if that's all a person is, like for yourself, you're not just your job, or you're not just a mother, or you're not just a wife, or you're not just a husband, or you're not just a brother. There are many different layers to who you are. I'm not just Lisa Oliver, old lady who lives by herself. I am also an author. I am a mother to my children. I am a grandmother to other children. I used to be a wife. I'm not anymore. But there's, none of that. If you just had that, none of that would explain how much I love art, how much I love creating art, how in love I've become with my laser machine, or things like that. And this is where it comes about being a character being multidimensional. You want something different about your character that makes them stand out and makes them appeal to the reader. For example, my recent book, Helios, when I first thought of Helios, my first thought was, I knew he was quite small, because I had written about him fleetingly. He was a secondary character in a previous story. Not Thor's, Jason and Artemis. No, not Artemis. Jar and Lassie story. Don't Fight It. And so the readers had already met him, and they knew that he was quite small, and they knew that he was a friendly god, but that was all they knew. But the first thing I thought about Helios, before I started writing his book, and actually why I started writing his book, was because I imagined some guy who was a god, yes, and he rode the sun chariot every day, but he also loved to curl up with his fluffy slippers and a lovely robe. He loved to watch old movies, and he absolutely adored the new coffee machine he'd purchased, and that gave him, he went from not just being a god, an ancient god, he became somebody that was more relatable. People, by somebody reading it might think, oh, I like fluffy slippers, or, oh, does he like that type of coffee, or whatever, but they would find him more relatable because he was multidimensional. He wasn't just the god who happened to ride the sun chariot. One of the ways that you can show how a character is, and I have to admit, this is a step that I included, but it's not one I use very often, but you can show differences in characters that you've got interacting on the page by the way you use your dialogue. Now, I'm not somebody that writes with a lot of, say, local dialect, like, for example, setting a story in Scotland and what have you, and I could never capture that amazing accent that they have, or their, what do you call it? It's like almost like the brr that they have in their voices. I can't capture that on a page, and so I tend to, move away from it. And I also, unless I think it was something that you're really enmeshed in yourself, then I would avoid doing that in your characters. But most definitely, for example, some of my characters never swear, but they still obviously use words to indicate swearing, but they're not swearing, so they'll use nice words for swear words. And I have other characters who just swear at the drop of a hat. They just don't care. It's such an ingrained part of their dialogue. And that's one way that dialogue can show differences. But the other things is you can look at whether or not somebody uses very precise language, or who are, perhaps they use long words, and this in itself can become a character trait as compared to somebody else who's perhaps a lot more casual about it, and perhaps teases the one who uses, what is it? I read a really awesome book recently. I'm really sorry to the author because I can't remember what it was called, but the guy used words. It was like he was one of those that learned a new word every day. A new word every day. He had one of those calendars, and so he had a word of the day, and he kept trying to find ways of injecting that word into the conversation during the day, and that became part of his persona. That not only was he doing that, but that he was also being teased about it by his friends. And this is where it comes under this fourth fact, which is show, don't tell, because these are the examples. You don't want to be telling your reader that, Clifford, had a calendar that had a new word of the day on it every day, and that was part of his morning routine. You would show his morning routine where he was getting up, scratching his butt, pouring himself a cup of coffee and and tearing off the next day so that he could see what the word was. And maybe you could show show through this how he's trying to sound out the word and he's trying to work out what it is he's saying. Maybe he asks his phone what it is that the word actually means so he can think of examples on how to put it into a sentence and use it during the day. You show them by examples how these different, it helps build the layers of your character's personality. And it can be a lot of fun doing that. And then finally, of course, because this is a story that you're writing, and no story really can be written without some form of conflict or goal realization. I mean, the point of every story is that your characters need to get from point A to point B, or they need to resolve the quest, or they need to, do whatever. But the whole point of having a story about these people is that they have conflicts, both internal and external, and they're going to have goals, and maybe these goals work in the book, or maybe they don't, maybe the goals change. But when you're writing a story, particularly one that is character driven, your readers are going to expect to see some sort of change from the beginning to the end of the book. Characters need to grow. They need to sort of unfurl in front of the reader's eyes so the readers get to know them, they get to love them or hate them, remember, because we've still got our bad guys too. But then over time, these people grow, they evolve because of the conflicts and goals and what have you that you've set out for them in the book process, so that they become hopefully better people by the end of the story. And that's what keeps a reader reading. That's what keeps a reader going, because you're creating characters that they will love or hate, because I mean, some people just love to hate. But I have so many readers, and I write different, I wrote so many different characters. I worked it out, I've got over 200 main characters in my little, in my brain now from all the books that I have written. But there will nearly always, as I'm writing a character or something, and I'm writing something and I'll think, I'm going to get comments. They're going to be saying, oh, I really wanted to slap such and such, or I really wanted to do such and such. Or I really hated such and such until he did X, Y, Z. And that's really important because I write romances. So I need for my readers to love my characters completely. And so if they start off by not liking them because maybe that character is arrogant or rude, or he brushes somebody off or whatever else, then I need for him to do something particularly redeeming so that the readers can fall in love with him at the same time as the other MC does. But anyway, I didn't plan on taking up a lot of the time today, but it's a new year, a new chance to get your book written. And if this little information, just this little tidbit on how to create characters or some character writing tips, then hopefully this has helped. If you have any questions about how to develop your characters or anything else at all, please drop them in the comments below. If you have found this useful, please hit the like and subscribe button. And until next time, my friend, hug the ones you love, and we'll see you at the next video. Bye.